Conor Weigman in the transfer portal. That's a name that we've heard more than a few times. Nobody has heard it or spoke it as many as my current guest, Andrew Stefaniak, locked on Texas A&M Aggies. So, Andrew, Weigman hits the portal. This is not a big surprise, right? Marcel Reed takes the starting job from him. It's not like Weigman was bad this season. He was 4-1 as Texas A&M starter, but they go with Marcel Reed. The team that gets him, we'll talk about potential destinations, but the team that gets him is getting what?
They're getting a quarterback that, despite everything during his 3 seasons at Texas A&M, has a lot of upside. I don't know what his deal was with Colin Klein. I thought that would be a match made in heaven. It wasn't. It didn't work out. Weigman played poorly in the games that mattered most, Notre Dame and LSU. Obviously, Reed came in and found a way to win that game for A&M. But I think they're getting a quarterback who loves football and is willing to have someone teach him to be better. He needs to be better, and it might be a coaching issue. And we see this all the time. Players don't succeed. They transfer. They're great. I have a feeling Weigman's going to be one of those players. He's going to find a new home and be a really good player.
Do you feel like he needs a big support system around him? Like his numbers this year, they're not popping off the page per se, 3 touchdowns and 5 picks, 56%. But we've seen the glimpses, right? We've seen the flashes. We just haven't seen it become sustained success for him at the quarterback spot. Do you think it's because he wasn't in the right spot at Texas A&M or because he didn't have enough help with Texas A&M?
He had a lot better weapons last year. If you remember correctly, Conor Weigman was lights out before he got hurt last season. And then this year, the weapons weren't as good and it didn't click. I think that Conor Weigman, once again, the upside's there. Texas A&M's weapons were not great this year. Receiver was a massive problem, something I talk about a lot. And that's part of it too. I mean, Marcel Reed, it's a reason why he got benched in all honesty. Marcel Reed had the legs. Weigman can move, but he doesn't have Marcel Reed type legs. When there's not great receivers, he's a bit useless. If he goes to a place that has defined weapons that can help him out and a coaching staff that can just fine tune a few things, it's definitely there for Conor Weigman to be successful. I've called it. He's going to go somewhere and be great. I just have that feeling, and it's going to irk me a little bit, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, he seems like he could be a Tyler Shuck type. Like Shuck was better at Texas Tech, I think, than Weigman was overall at Texas A&M, but had injury history, experienced guy, former blue chip quarterback prospect. One team that I've seen get suggested for Conor Weigman as a potential landing spot is Auburn. Mm-hmm. I think that's highly fascinating for 2 reasons. Number one, Auburn has to go to the portal to get a quarterback because Hugh Freeze needs to win. You went 6-7, 5-7 your first 2 years. That's not the bill of goods that Auburn fans, I think, were expecting when he took over for Brian Harsin. Particularly this year, I think was a disappointment. First year, I think was all right, but this was a disappointing season for Auburn majorly, and it just came down to the quarterback position. Peyton Thorne wasn't good. He was not good until the second half of the year. So that's the first reason it's interesting. The second reason, though, is you talk about giving him support, giving him weapons. Cam Coleman is as good of a freshman wide receiver as there is in college football. He's kind of faded in the freshman wide receiver discussion nationally because Auburn isn't very good, but he is that guy. And if you keep him out of the transfer portal, that's a premier target to sell to Conor Weigman. Do you think Auburn is the sort of situation where he could succeed?
I think it'd be a good spot for him, knowing I believe in Hugh Freeze. I think Peyton Thorne kind of already was what Peyton Thorne was. I don't think there was much development there. So people say, well, I thought he was a quarterback guru. Why does Peyton Thorne stink? I think he kind of already was who he was. Conor Weigman, I think, is more, and he's been around for a while, but he hasn't played. I think he's more moldable. And you talk about the weapons. Cam Coleman's still there. I don't know if any of the other receivers. I know they got that Perry Thompson. I don't know if that kid's going to leave. Malcolm Sims. There's some good young receivers over at Auburn. Looking at that, he'd have the weapons. He would have the weapons, and I think Hugh Freeze is a better coach at coaching quarterbacks than Klein has proved so far this year, his 1 year at A&M. So I think it could be a successful landing spot for him, and I think it'd be really funny because then you'd see Conor Weigman coming into Kyle Field next year. which would be very interesting. And if that
high
happens,
entertainment value for you and me, guys in the entertainment business, we'd be like, oh, sign us up for that one.
And I'll tell you this, you can already pin that one as a loss if he goes to Auburn and Auburn comes to Kyle Field, because they'll win that one. I can already book. We've seen that enough in college football. But I do think that'd be a solid spot for him, knowing because Auburn has that 5-star quarterback they just signed. They need somebody for 1 or 2 years, maybe just 1 year. And I think Weigman could be a perfect fit for what they're looking for to bridge the gap over to their new quarterback, Deuce Knight.
So another team that I've seen suggested that I want to push back on is Oregon. And for those who don't know, I'm an Oregon guy, so I can speak to this pretty knowledgeably. 2 reasons that's not going to happen. The tie that I see get posted in articles with Conor Weigman is, well, his old friend Evan Stewart is over there. I think it is 60-40, maybe 65-35 likelihood that Evan Stewart goes to the NFL after the season. He doesn't have huge numbers, but his NFL pro prospects are really good. He could come back. He could. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2, Oregon's quarterback room is already set for the future. They're bringing in 2 blue chip guys in the class of 2025. They've got Dante Moore on the roster. They've also got Austin Novosad, who's a former 4-star guy. Like, they have 4 scholarship quarterbacks there, and Dante Moore is the heir apparent. He was brought in to sit for a year with the idea he would start in 2025. So anytime you see Oregon thrown out there, I do not see that in any way, shape, or form being a realistic option. The other team I've seen is Georgia, and yeah, see, Andrew's making a face for those listening to the podcast. I don't see that one working either.
The names that I saw pop up, to be honest with you, I saw different names pop up. I mean, now I saw the names pop up like boom, right when you hit the portal, and I saw Louisville, Missouri, and there were some Syracuse. There's some names like that.
See,
that's who I saw pop up.
I like Syracuse.
That's what I've said.
Because Kyle McCord just went there. He feels a lot like Conor Weigman. Yeah. Veteran, former blue chip guy, didn't work out a big time program. Whatever offensive system Fran Brown's got cooking up there at Syracuse, clearly really good. Kyle McCord just led the country in passing. I would be lying if I'd said I've done a deep dive on Syracuse's receiver room, but at the very least, Andrew, I look at the success Kyle McCord had and feel like that can easily translate to Conor Weigman next year.
I think Syracuse is the perfect spot. And what's this guy's name here? There's a coach from Texas A&M, and I forget, he was there. Elijah Robinson. I blanked on his name. He was the guy that was the interim, right, when they fired Jimbo Fisher, and he's up there at Syracuse. So there's even some coaching staff, overlap there with Weigman and Syracuse.
I think that could be great.
I think Syracuse is the spot. That's the one. When I first saw that list, it was like Louisville, Missouri, and Syracuse. There was another score too. That was the one that immediately was like, man, Syracuse feels like it makes the most sense for him. Connor, like you said, Oregon, let's say, goodness forbid, they feel like they need to go get a quarterback in the portal. They can do better than Oregon. Just write a Nike check. We'll be fine. You can go get someone better than Conor Weigman. Auburn, I think, is a fit that makes sense. Georgia, no, just don't like that one at all. I think of the ones Auburn makes sense. I think Syracuse makes the most sense, though. I mean, in all seriousness.
I don't hate the Louisville option. I discussed that for Miller Moss yesterday. I think that's a pretty good fit with Jeff Brom. Jeff Brom is a quarterback guru. One of the more underrated, great quarterback coaches in the country is Louisville's head guy. So I could see that working. I mean, he had a great season with Tyler Shuck this past year. I could see that working with Weigman or Miller Moss, but with that, I'd watch for Syracuse. Because Kyle McCord is the same sort of guy. Like, by the end of the year, Ohio State fans were, we can't. This guy, he's not throwing that. Look at the yardage. This is just not very good. Boom. Yeah. He is the nation's leading passer. Yeah. I'm glad you and I see eye to eye on that, because I think that could be a great fit. And by the way, Fran Brown just had a phenomenal first year at Syracuse. 9-3, upset Miami at home to end the regular season with a 21-point comeback. They could have a 10-win year. That is a program right now that looks like it's on the rise. I think it could work for Syracuse. I think it could work for Conor Weigman as well. And Andrew Stefaniak always works for us. Locked On Texas A&M Aggies on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Andrew, appreciate it, my man. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.